first person on the agenda that you're going to hear from is Michael Brown. Michael is the principal with his wife Linda Lee of Brown Pelican Consulting, LLC. Together they've served over 100 cities across Georgia. Before forming the consulting firm, Michael was the city manager of Savannah for over 15 years, and he was also the assistant city manager in Savannah. Michael's also served as city manager of the Columbus Consolidated Government for 5.5 years, so he has both perspectives from the city and the county side. He's been a city manager in Stratford, Connecticut, and Mount Pleasant, Tennessee. He has an undergraduate and graduate degree from the University of Georgia. And his wife, Linda Lee, was not able to be here tonight. She's a little under the weather, but she was a teacher for 30 years and also a graduate of James Madison University. Next on the agenda, we've got Wesley Corbett. He is the city manager of the city of Rincon. He has his BBA in accounting from Georgia Southern University. He is a licensed certified public accountant. He has past partnership association and experience with Wilson and Corbett CPAs, Keynes, Hodges, Pace and Corbett CPAs. He's been the finance director for the city of Rincon. And he has managed more than 200 financial audits to include government, private, and banking institutions. Currently, he is the city manager of the city of Rincon and a partner and analyst with SDS Consultants, LLC. And then last but certainly not least, Ms. Judy McCorkle. She's the city manager for the city of Sandersville. She has her master's in public administration from Georgia Southern University, as well as a bachelor's of political science from Georgia Southern. She's a certified finance officer through the Carl Vinson Institute of Government, as well as a certified municipal clerk through CBIOG. She has been the city administrator for Sandersville from October 2009 to the present. Before that, she served as the interim city manager, and she was previously the director of finance and administration / city clerk for the city of Statesboro from 2000 to 2008. Before that, she served as the city clerk and treasurer for Statesboro from 1994 to 2000. So we have represented here a great deal of experience. I will try to be quick in going through the information that I wanted to share with you tonight. Okay, the service delivery strategy. The reason that we're doing these programs around the state is back in the summer during the annual convention, our executive director, Lamar Norton, was approached by a few city officials who thought that it would be helpful for us to offer some kind of training or some kind of workshop on service delivery agreements. We went back and did a little survey of communities to see how widespread this feeling was, if it was something that city officials thought they might want to have. Here's a quick summary of the responses. A lot of communities said that they were already under review on their service delivery agreement. Some have had completed it, some were in preliminary discussions, some have not talked about it, and some were not even familiar with it. As I mentioned before, that wouldn't be that unusual if you were not here in 1995 when the law originally went into effect. If you didn't work on your service delivery agreement and it hasn't been updated, then maybe you might not be familiar with it. And then we asked if people felt like they would want to attend a training that GMA provided, and overwhelmingly the response was that people did want to have this type of training. In terms of the types of information that people asked for, they wanted everything from just basic information about what the law says to how to calculate tax equity, how to determine whether there is duplication of services and tax equity, and just some general training on negotiations and guidance for enforcing the existing agreement that's in place. I'm just going to very quickly give you a background on the Service Delivery Act itself, kind of how we got here today. Back in 1995, the Georgia General Assembly created the Georgia Future Communities Commission. They were asked to examine some issues that were confronting local governments to determine what changes are needed to improve the structure and operation and develop specific proposals to achieve those changes. They were charged with offering some ideas on how our communities can work better to create an environment conducive to an improved quality of life and economic prosperity. The group had 30 members. It was made up of city and county officials, business leaders, and state legislators. And they were tasked with examining ways to improve local government structure and operation, as I mentioned. In 1996, a year later, the Future Communities Commission concluded that that Article 9, Section 2, Paragraph 2 of the Georgia Constitution, which is often referred to as the Supplementary Powers Provision or Amendment 19, that created conflict and inefficiency and service duplication between local governments. And Michael is going to go into a little bit more depth on that issue. But what the commission determined is that there would need to be a new locally driven, locally controlled process to sort out service delivery responsibilities and funding sources. Sounds pretty simple, but it did take a while for ACCG and GMA to work together to figure out some consensus about how this was going to be accomplished. Ultimately, they did reach agreement. They worked on a proposal with the legislature, and it was introduced as House Bill 489 by Representative Richard Royal, who was then chairman of the House State Planning and Community Affairs Committee. And along with 3 companion bills, it was enacted by the General Assembly and signed into law by the governor. The House Bill 489 did go with 3 companion bills. One was the insurance premiums tax, one was the Uniform Chart of Accounts, and another was a SPLOST notification requirement bill. The insurance premium tax bill really stated that the proceeds of insurance premium taxes must be used by the county to pay for services or provide tax relief solely to unincorporated residents of the county. The Uniform Chart of Accounts, y'all are probably familiar that was intended to create consistency and a uniform format for your financial reporting. And then the SPLOST notification requirements, that was basically to give cities a seat at the table for those negotiations. The intent of the service delivery strategy was to provide a flexible framework for service delivery systems that's efficient and responsive to all citizens. The goal was to eliminate duplications of services and eliminate double taxation and minimize incompatible land use plans. The elements that must be included in a service delivery agreement, you must have a description of all the services that are provided by every local government and every authority, including current arrangements, but it shouldn't be a static document. It should also examine how you intend to provide those services going into the future. And then also, you should describe the geographic area where each service will be provided. I'm going to show little examples from some service delivery documents that have already been completed. This is, I believe, from Lawrence County. And it just shows you the first page of a description of the county's airport services and how that's going to be provided. This states that the Lawrence County Airport Service will be provided countywide, and this is something that you have to do for each service. Just identify what the name of the service is and how it'll be provided. A lot of times it's helpful for services if a map is actually included that shows the service area. That way there's no confusion about that. In addition to the services and the land use plans, you need to describe the funding sources and mechanisms, identifying all intergovernmental contracts, any ordinances that are in place to help implement those agreements. And I'll also point out that the services do exclude the constitutional officers, so the sheriff, clerk of the Superior Court, judge of the probate court, or the tax commissioner. Those services are not included. And here's another page from another service delivery document, or maybe from the same one, just describing how this service is going to be funded. And it's actually better to go into a little bit more detail than they have here. They say that the service will be provided with general fund, sales tax, and DOT funds. It would really be even better to say what percentage of each of those revenue sources would be used to pay for the service, just as much detail as you can provide. Okay, here's another description of a service that's provided in Lawrence County. They describe one of their intergovernmental agreements. I mentioned that those have to be included for their service arrangements. They indicate that they have a mutual aid agreement, and they list the parties that are included in that agreement, as well as the effective dates of the agreement. All right, the criteria for the service delivery strategies, again, is to eliminate the unnecessary duplication of services. However, higher levels of services are not considered to be duplicated services. So if the county provides a county-wide service for solid waste collection, a lot of times they'll have dumpsters located in areas around the county, and anybody can go and use those dumpsters. But if the city chooses to have curbside pickup, that's not a duplication of service. That's actually a higher level of service. So that would not be considered duplication of services in the service delivery criteria. Water and sewer rate differentials are allowed. A local government can charge a higher rate outside its jurisdiction or outside the geographic boundaries of their local government, but that just has to be explained. It can't be arbitrary. A lot of times you can get your engineer to help explain why your rates might be higher outside your city limits. All the land use plans must be compatible. Sometimes all the jurisdictions go in together and have one single land use plan, and that's okay too. And then there has to be a process to resolve disputes over land use classifications or areas to be annexed. This is another form that where you describe your land use agreements and what's in place for those, and just indicate that they are compatible. Of course, one of the primary reasons for service delivery agreements is to eliminate double taxation. One of the main things to keep in mind is that services that are primarily provided for the unincorporated area must be funded by revenues derived exclusively from the unincorporated area. All of our speakers are going to touch on techniques that they've used to kind of get into this, so I won't go into a lot of detail about this, but one option for counties to be able to do that is to create special service districts. And this is a description of a special service district in the county. All right, when the law went into effect, it was required that the process be initiated between July 1st, 1997 and January 1st, 1998. The county was to send notice to all cities located wholly or partially within the county, all other cities that provide service within the county, and any other counties which might provide services within the county. And if the process wasn't initiated by January 1st, 1998, then the city could do so by similar written notification. The procedure for approving the service delivery agreement, of course, the city and county sit down together and develop the service delivery agreement. Approval just simply means adoption of a resolution by the county and all of the affected municipalities, which are defined as being the county seat, cities with 9,000 or more population, and no less than 50% of the remaining municipalities with at least 500 persons. And the initial process, there was a 120-day extension allowed if it was agreed to by all the affected cities in the county. This is a signature page from one of the service delivery agreements that are online. And by the way, all of you, if you are not familiar, if you don't know where your service delivery agreement is right now, you can go on the DCA website, and they have a great website with a lot of resources, including a copy of every county's service delivery agreement. If you look on there and don't see your counties, let me know, because there may be a couple that haven't been scanned in, but DCA does have all these. When the document is complete, when all the signatures are on the forms, the county is required to file a service delivery agreement with the Department of Community Affairs, and then DCA has 30 days to verify its receipt of the service delivery agreement. They don't have any authority to approve or disapprove. They're not going to go through and tell you that you did things right or wrong. They're simply going to verify that they received it and that it meets the basic criteria. If the jurisdictions fail to complete the process and fail to get their service delivery agreement verified, there are sanctions in place, and the state can withhold all grants, loans, or permits, any financial assistance. This would include any of your DOT contracts, your local maintenance improvement grants, CDBG contracts, EBD permits. So there's an extensive list of things that you would face sanctions on if you fail to be in compliance. And the three ways that you might fail is that that the agreement wasn't formally adopted by all the required entities, that the agreement doesn't address all the required components and criteria, or it hasn't been updated as required. This is just a long list of some of the things that you would be ineligible to receive if you were not in compliance with your service delivery agreement. Before sanctions go into place, there is an alternative dispute resolution process. Local governments must use some sort of a resolution method like mediation. If alternative dispute resolution fails, the mediator prepares a report for the public record. The costs of alternative dispute resolution are shared by the parties to the dispute on a pro rata population basis, with the county's share coming from the unincorporated area. And if local governments are still unsuccessful in reaching agreement, After sanctions have been imposed, the law provides that any of the parties can file a petition in Superior Court seeking mandatory mediation. Some triggers for when to update the service delivery strategy is when your comprehensive plan is updated, anytime when service delivery arrangements change, when your revenue distribution arrangements change, if there is a creation, abolition, or consolidation of local governments, when the document expires, or anytime the parties agree to revise the strategy. If a county or affected municipality refuses to review and revise the strategy, any of the parties can use the alternative dispute resolution and appeal procedures. So again, just the goal for today is review your service delivery agreement if you happen to bring your document with you. Our speakers are going to offer some great tips. I'm really excited for you to hear what they have to say about calculating tax equity and duplication of services. And this is a great opportunity for y'all to talk to each other and ask questions about what's going on in your communities. In addition to some of the information you're going to hear today, in addition to it being important for renegotiating your service delivery agreement, it's also just important in terms of negotiating things like local option sales tax and making decisions about economic development or your budget, any planning decisions. This is great information for you to have on hand for any decision making that you do locally. Ultimately, the goal is to achieve tax equity because you want to be fair to your taxpayers. It's all about the taxpayers. So that is all I have. I'm going to move on ahead, and let me also note that the session today is being recorded by webcast, so there are probably 6 or 7 people joining us online, and we appreciate their participation as well. So I'll just turn it over to Michael if you're ready, Michael.